People aware of my biography, the problems I have faced in my personal activities, could be forgiven for assuming that everything is on the level with regard to the people who came after me. Moon Unit Zappa never gave any consideration that I can ever detect to the fact that when she regarded my letter to Leslie Katz as a Chappaquiddick, something can never be forgiven about a man who can never be taken seriously. She ignored that an Attica State Prison psychiatrist was my next door neighbor, and that the man who made an orgy of media opinions about Chappaquiddick itself was a partner of the people who surrounded me, Cyril Wecht. They lied about what the letter said. They changed this meeting and engaged in gaslighting, weighted by the idea that it happened simultaneously with John Lennon's murder, about which I could have done something if I had understood that the person who is their partner had set out and written a script about killing him to make money. So they want the money. It's not because they're partners, it's because they think it's a good idea. Now, if you discredit the idea that it's a good idea, it may just go full circle back to the weight that they put on the concept of could have saved John Lennon. And the rest of it just disregard as overkill. So let's examine this overkill. The letter said the opposite of what they claimed. Virginity does not prove rape. There's not soon to be another Ice Age, and there were no weapons of mass destruction in Patricia Fripp's friend Colin Powell's Iraq, which evidently Bush owned in escrow for Donald Trump. They own the world. The partnership behind the scenes, Zappa with Lennon, Waters with Jagger, and Bowie with Zappa, and so on, tends to be under the radar. But the idea that this letter, which contained the helter-skelter thing, just magically appeared and proved their case on behalf of the woman who wrote the letters they say are evidence in Lennon's murder, which Seattle incorrectly and maliciously diagnosed me schizophrenic to service, saying I didn't correspond with Peter Gabriel, which my mother said was absurd. He wrote to me for 3 years. Gives rise to an understanding of who they are and what they stand for. Roger Waters hated public schools. He made a point of bashing them in the wall. So did Lennon. And they came after me because my father was a school bus driver. He wrote books about the history of the normal school movement and so on. And he wanted to desegregate American colleges and universities. He turned down the presidency for the University of Georgia because they refused to desegregate. He's been characterized by a hero by more important people than me. So what gives is that King Crimson comes up with this KC business. Trump advocates, Maduro Goto advocates, David Bowie advocates, Keith Richards advocates for a man who tortured and trafficked me as a little child, who attacked me, tortured me, covered the tracks of the neurobehavioral researcher who poisoned me with a weapon, a nerve agent that is illegal under the Geneva Conventions. So they called this KC. What does that stand for? What does that mean in the hooligan logic? is that consenting sex is human trafficking. Well, okay, let's have a normal academic discussion about that. We'll bring in the Legion of Decency and National Organization of Women and some porn stars who love their art. Okay, and we'll discuss, is trafficking the same thing as consensual sex? Because that's the whole issue that they burned me over. I made a stand for consensual sex and only consensual sex. They said that's still human trafficking, which is a really strange thing for them to be doing in John Lennon's name, who was a hooligan of licentiousness. A whole movement emerged. They called it the sexual revolution under his replacement of Kennedy and King. So they get the Neva Pornographic Corporation to impinge narrative on trauma and hostage and get the lampoon stuff that Zappa was so enamored of and the self-contempt, mirror spinning of the spin the bottle of deceit and magic and show business going into overkill, so that even if you show that it's illogical, they say, well, you could have saved John Lennon, so it becomes logical again. And it reinvents the wheel of their overkill and their gaslighting. Now, what's important about this is it traces back to Fiume, where the era of the great dictators and the Hollywood mogul system emerged from a counterfeiting done simultaneously, because it was in that time with Mussolini and D.W. Griffith that cinema got the idea of counterfeiting reality through news media. And John Lennon got the starring role. They were calling Casper, the K in the system, a synthesis, because that's the guy who attacked me, used K to spell his name, Kasparowski. A synthesis of Lenin and Hitler, advocating for the black warriors who can't make up their minds about whether or not they stand with human trafficking and pornography, or whether they're Reagan Knights of Muhammad Ali's gospel, standing up for the virginity of the weeping virgins. And this is the medieval tapestry that they claim was found art. What do you mean found art? It's not found art. It's a contrivance that goes back. They thought of this and planned this from the very dawn of cinema. So the idea that Lennon pulled a Houdini is perfectly obvious, and everything falls into place when you realize that.